Hey everyone, it's Anne. As you know, we fund the show almost entirely with listener subscriptions, but I know not everyone has the room for that in their budget, or maybe you're feeling some subscription fatigue. But if you love the show, there are a couple things you can do to support us without spending any more. First, you can share it with a friend. You can post it on your Instagram story. You can email it to your mom. The other thing you can do is rate and review us in your podcast app. I don't think people really realize this, but those reviews go straight to Melody's inbox, and we'd love to see some reviews that don't say I'm a miserable professor or a pretentious asshole who is just using this podcast to talk to all of my friends. Basically, if you love this show, say so. Word of mouth helps us so much. Okay, thanks for listening, and on with the show. This is the Culture Study Podcast, and I'm Anne Helen Peterson.
And I am author and podcaster and Ben Affleck superfan, Jennifer Romolini.
Okay, so the reason I asked you to be my co-host, like there was no one else in my mind, truly no one else, because you are a Ben Affleck aficionado. And I mean that in terms of like, I just feel like you appreciate him and appreciate the multifacetedness of his like sadness. You post stuff of him, you know, doing the typical, like we've seen all these images of him like just sucking on a cigarette.
Stuffing McDonald's in his mouth in his car with like a face of ecstasy. Yes.
But
yes,
it's not,
I'm a scholar.
You're not like shaming him. You like it.
Here's the thing. First off, I'm a Ben Affleck scholar. I'm not really a fan. I'm a scholar.
Yeah.
And like, I think that everybody... I don't know if everybody has this, but a lot of people have a celebrity that you feel you just understand. Like if you were in a room with them, you could actually have a conversation with them because they're very knowable to you. They reflect something back at you that is very personal and intimate, and it just there's a connection, right?
Yes.
I feel like I understand Ben Affleck, Benjamin Geza Affleck. Let's get this correct, okay? But also he's been swirling around my life weirdly for about 25 years in very weird ways. Like I have a friend who actually went to Harvard. Ben Affleck did not go to Harvard, but Ben Affleck was at a party when my friend was at a party in Cambridge, because that's where Ben Affleck grew up, and my friend was a freshman at Harvard and he was throwing up, and Ben Affleck like literally held his hair. So that's one, right? Two, I had a really close friend in New York in the 2000s who was a junior reporter at Us Weekly. And her entire beat for 2 years was Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez. And this is when, you know, you really had reporters who would go out, I don't know if they still do, but who would chase celebrities down. So if Ben Affleck was in Georgia, she was in Georgia. If he was in Boston, she was in Boston.
Oh, no, they do not have that budget anymore.
Yeah. So she would, like, New Year's Eve, she was like hiding behind the slot machines in Vegas while he played like a blackjack game, you know? So, and he knew her, he recognized her. So she and I were best friends at the time, and she would like tell me everything. And one time she saw him in a bar in Cambridge, and she's like hiding behind the jukebox, and he like comes over to her and he puts his arm around her and he's like, "Listen, I know who you are. could you just give me this night, please? Like, just give me this night with my friends." And, you know, she couldn't. But like, from all accounts, like, he's a mess, but he's not an asshole.
Yeah.
I love what a mess he is. I find it to be so relatable. He has like resting bitch face for a man.
Yeah.
He can't hide how much he disdains the celebrity, but he also has like, you know, I just wrote a book about like class and ambition, and I feel like he's so ambitious for something. He and J.Lo both have like an unfillable hole, but it's like for different things.
Yes.
Or they both have an unfillable hole, but the way they fill it is different, I would say.
So you stole my segue, which is
so sorry.
The reason I knew I wanted to talk to you about him was because I had read your book. I'd read a galley of your book and blurbed it because I love it. And I knew that there were things at the heart of your book and of coming up in New York and coming up in media over the course of the last 20 years that intersected in maybe not obvious ways, but, you know, I've done a deep dive on every interview that Ben Affleck gave up until around Batman. So when I was at BuzzFeed, I did this big, huge, like retrospective analysis of what is going on with Ben Affleck, right?
Yes,
like
yes.
why was he so sad? The title of the piece, I think, was The Unbearable Sadness of Ben Affleck.
Incredible.
And I unearthed, all of these old classic late 90s, early 2000s magazines, like an incredible interview he did with George magazine, which was
my
JFK
God,
Jr.'s
yes.
magazine. Yeah. And the themes that kept coming up again and again were like a real self-consciousness about class positionality, relationship to Harvard, how even just like the conversation about whether or not they actually wrote Good Will Hunting and how I think like destabilizing that was for him.
Yeah.
And then the constant comparison to Matt Damon.
Yes.
And
yes.
all of this we will get to, but I think that that's really at the heart of a lot of this.
Well, okay, so here's in the way in which I can relate to Ben Affleck, which are many, but in the ways in which our stories are somewhat similar. I have a sort of hard stamped Italian American Philadelphia identity, right? Like working class. And then I found myself with, a level of success in white collar, very elite worlds. And I think that it's very hard to shake a lower class identity. Like there's always a self-consciousness and there's always a, wait, am I smart enough to be here? And oh God, wait, I don't want to leave those people behind. Like you see him, he has a real loyalty. I mean, obviously with Boston and everything, he doesn't want to leave behind who he is at his core. But also you see his, yes, I think you're right, self-consciousness. And you see this really in his relationship with Gwyneth Paltrow, which I think he aspired to be the kind of guy who could date a Gwyneth Paltrow, And like, there's just all these like paparazzi photos of her like rolling her eyes at him like, oh, Ben, you're gross. And,
Yeah.
he's like a gross dude. He's like not a gross dude, but he's not a rich guy and he's not a particularly intellectual guy, even though I think he wants to be.
Totally wants to be. And here's Gwyneth, who comes from this incredible Hollywood pedigree, right?
Yes.
Like has only known class and sophistication in her life.
Yes. And you see him like walking around Paris with her in like his bad jeans. Like I like he can't ascend.
All right. So when we did the call out for questions on this, we started with 2 questions. And then you and I were like, okay, we got to put this on Instagram. We got to ask people to give us some questions. And we got a record breaking 96 questions.
Yes.
We can only get to a fraction, but they generally are grouped under general headings. So we chose some underneath each of those headings. So the first question comes from Rachel, and it's a really good summary of Ben's image over the arc of his career.
Affleck seems to occupy a very specific space in Hollywood as a star who calls back to old Hollywood tropes like being a heartthrob, being self-destructive, having box office pull while also having more artistic goals. He has a compelling origin story. He has a classic buddy relationship, and his marriage with Jennifer Lopez seems to be in keeping with all of this. Except when he lifts the veil, or when memes do, to reveal his humanity by way of his struggles with addiction, his co-parenting with Jennifer Garner, his love of Dunkin' Donuts, etc. I wonder if you can talk about his performance as both a classic 20th century celebrity and a complex 21st century celebrity, and what his performance as such means for future movie stars.
First off, Rachel, incredible question.
Damn.
I mean, we love it. And I think it's so true. And you can see this actually in various roles that Affleck has taken post Good Will Hunting, right? So Armageddon, Pearl Harbor, even Batman, right? Like these are roles that if this was 1940, they would fit into this particular star type of him as leading man.
Yes, but he hated all of them.
Yes, and he's not that person. I don't even think he's actually that believable as that person.
No, he's not. But I think he was. I mean, if you look at before he got the role in Armageddon, he was told he could only get this role. They wanted to push him out as a leading man. He could only get this role if he fixed his teeth and he lost weight. So suddenly, like, I think we're now in like plugs, and when he was in the J.Lo period, he was getting Botox clearly with the smooth forehead. I mean, the first J.Lo period.
Yeah.
I don't think he doesn't read leading man to me. I think he's too like negative to be leading man. He's not like charismatic in that way. There's like a bitterness to him that just doesn't play. It's not, and he doesn't have enough swagger, and he's not good at self-mythologizing, which you have to be if you're going to be one of those people, one of those kinds of men.
Yes. I think back on his very early roles, which is how I was introduced to him. Yeah. Which is like in the Kevin Smith movies. So Chasing Amy, Mallrats, even in like Dazed and Confused. And
Confused. Yeah.
And he's a bully, right? Yeah. And I think that that's compelling, like him as a bully, but also a difficult sell for someone who looks like him. Like you have to make really forceful choices in your career choices. Like you have to be like Robert Pattinson, right?
Yes.
To escape your looks when you're like have already been framed as a heartthrob in some way.
But
right?
his taste is not that good. That's the problem. That's a problem. And I think he knows it. I think he knows he's mid. Like it's this struggle, but
he's mid.
He aspires to not be mid, but he wants to be creatively fulfilled. He has this father who's like a failed screenwriter, who's also an alcoholic, who's really winds up being like, just good for nothing, for that family. He's his mother surrounds them with artistic friends, so he has this aspiration to be an artist, but he doesn't actually have the skill to do it, I think, and the taste to do it. And he's also not beautiful. Like he's not like Brad Pitt. He's not beautiful.
Or even Matt Damon, right? Like Matt Damon is much more, I think, classic Hollywood looks in terms of like the squareness. In some ways almost like Gary Cooperness to his face. But also with like Matt Damon has made more interesting choices in terms of the types of roles that he's played.
He's a better actor.
Whether it was Talented Mr. Ripley or various like, what's the Fargo one that he did where he was like an accountant? Oh, so good.
Oh, yes. I know what you're talking about.
He has like a little mustache.
Yes. What was it? It's not the Insider. It's not that. It's something.
But I think if he were a classic Hollywood star, he would be B-level. Still a star, but still like someone who most people don't know their name today. And all of those parts of his private life that are less in fitting with a classic Hollywood star would be invisible to us. So this gets to the part of the question that's like 20th century star versus 21st century. So what we see revealed of him through paparazzi, through slippages in the image, like he really does love Duncan, right? Like,
oh, he really does love Duncan.
Loves it.
He loves Duncan, but also like, but let's just for 1 second, like, let's think about who's like a great, like Matthew McConaughey is not struggling with the things that Ben Affleck is struggling with.
Yeah.
He's just not. I think to be a great leading man, you have to be more vapid than Ben Affleck is, and he's not actually vapid.
Yeah. The taste part is really interesting to me too, because I think something like Argo is Hollywood high art, like prestige picture high art.
Well, it's a dog playing a saxophone. Let's be honest.
But it's not like experimental film, right? No. Like it's not like, it's just a really great classic Hollywood movie and well made. And I compare it to someone like Clooney. Like Clooney also does not have great taste.
No, right? Yes, exactly. Yes, but Clooney's more beautiful and charismatic than Ben Affleck.
Yes. So he's got that going for him. So even though he makes these like pretty boring movies that now no one sees, but people convince themselves that he was actually a good director because he made the first movie that he directed, which was Good Night and Good Luck, was in black and white, so serious.
Oh my God, the Clooney pretentious is so funny, but it's funnier from him because he is like, Clooney is just like a doll. Like he's dreamy. Ben Affleck is not dreamy. That's also like, he's so complicated because he's not that kind of man. Yeah. Like you won't just accept anything from him. Like Argo is good. Argo is solidly good. It's not great.
No one's like top 10 movies of the 2010s. Argo. Right?
I don't even remember what it was about. Like I've seen it and I'm like, wait, I kind of remember, but like.
So do you think that he should act more or that he should direct more?
I think he should do whatever he wants. I think Ben Affleck should just try to be happy. Like I just feel like Ben Affleck needs to find peace. I think that he should continue to try to challenge himself creatively, because I feel like that's what he's looking for. I mean, you know, that's why he can't, the Justice League like broke him. Like he was so depressed. He said like after playing Batman in the Justice League, like it broke his heart, like he was sickened. I forget what else he said about it, but like it's, you know, he felt wrung out after it.
Just like deep inner shame, right?
Deep inner shame, but also I think there is also a sense of justice in him, and I think that everybody was so treated so poorly on that film. He said something like it was like the worst experience he ever had in an already shitty business, you know. And I think he doesn't want to show up for that. I think he has a conscience, honestly.
Yeah. Okay, well, this is also the idea of authenticity and that sort of thing feeds into this next question, which comes from Coco.
As a former masshole, I'm interested in how Affleck maintains his image as a sort of towny glow-up, despite the fact that he's been entrenched in LA and Hollywood for decades. His version of I'm Benny from the block seems to play with more perceived authenticity than J.Lo's. See that video of a guy in the Bronx clowning her at her old house. Other than the obvious answer of patriarchy, how does Ben Affleck keep us all thinking he's just a normal guy in the Dunks drive-thru after multiple celebrity marriages, pap walks, PR machinations, see also his PBS fiasco? It's maddening.
Okay. Where do you start here?
Jesus Christ. I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot because like Mark Wahlberg is actually like a masshole. Like you could just feel it. And then he's got
like
the whole religious thing. Like, yes, the violence and like, like
so Catholic, like
Southie, you know, it's just the Wahlburgers, like fucking everything about it. Right. Like, I just think that Ben Affleck doesn't want to lose connection to his roots. I mean, this is a man who has like an identity. He's in a constant identity crisis, right? Because he likes making art quotes, and he wants to be a creative person, and I think he really likes making movies. I really do. I think he's like nerdy about like, I think he likes directing movies. Like, you know, we'll get into it, I'm sure, in a minute. But the documentary, you know, that just came out when he's like showing her the camera stuff, and she's like, I don't care, but you could see
J.Lo,
how exactly, and you could see how dorky he is about it. But at the same time, like, think about how corny he is. He wears like a Boston t-shirt every day of his life. Like, how many Boston t-shirts does this man have? It's wild.
Right. But I don't think he's wearing a Boston t-shirt because he's like, I got to convince people that I love Boston. Like, I think he's like, what could I wear? I guess this other Boston t-shirt, right? Like,
I think so too. Have you ever seen him more delighted than in these Dunkin' Donuts commercials? He loves
the best time. He was having the best time.
The best time.
And that's the sort of thing that I think with a different celebrity, they feel shame about that sort of selling out, right?
Yes.
Whereas Affleck's shame was much more around, as we just talked about, being in a superhero franchise movie in a role that he wasn't proud of, in a production that he wasn't proud of.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it's almost about integrity.
Right. It's about integrity. It's about values. It's about that sort of middle class values. Want to make my mother proud. Still keeping the same friends forever. Like, it's wild that him and Matt Damon are still friends. They've been friends since they were 8 and 10 years old.
Do you think they are still friends? This is what people sometimes wonder.
Like, I think they really love each other, and I think they're still friends. I mean, they're producing movies together. They're writing movies together. I mean, we could have an entire podcast episode about The Last Duel. I can't. I'll never get over it.
I just memory wiped that. Wow.
It is.
Wow.
That is the wildest. How was it even made? I love it, and I think it's disgusting. Like, it's amazing. Anyway.
What about this question about, like, there's some misogyny going on, that, like, it's easier for people to believe in Ben's authentic connection to Boston than, like, J.Lo's connection to the Bronx, say?
Well, I mean, like that gets back into the self-mythologizing, right? I don't think that Ben Affleck is doing that. I think Jennifer Lopez is very careful about her outward persona, even though she shares everything. It's a very careful share, right?
Yes. Yes. We just recorded an episode on Jennifer Lopez, and we talked a lot about how she seems like she's like, oh, I'm giving you all of this vulnerability of like
Yes.
the process here. But there's a lot of stuff that's not.
Well, she doesn't, I mean, from all accounts, she doesn't treat people very well. I mean, people who work for her, people who work in her house, people, I've heard stories because, I've been in LA for a long time. You hear stories of like, she doesn't like a half lit candle. Like once a candle is used and blown out, she doesn't want anyone to relight it. And like, if you do relight her diptyque candle, she will have your ass, like I've heard stories that people need to call her Ms. Lopez. You're not allowed to don't look her in the eye. She's one of those, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that she's coming out and being like, yeah, I'm still Jenny from the block. Come on.
Yeah. She's not wearing the bad jeans. Like,
she's not, exactly. She's not wearing the bad jeans. And that's fine. Be that person. It's fine. But don't pretend to be another kind of person.
And I think it also just comes out with the contrast. Like when you have them both next to one another now in this.
Yeah.
Like, both in the documentary, in like all the conversations about them and that sort of thing. And also like because men don't put on glam in the same way.
Yes.
There isn't that, like, most imagery that we see of Ben Affleck, he looks pretty much the same unless he's walking a red carpet.
Oh, yeah. There's an entire Instagram account dedicated to one of his plaid shirts. Like his flannel that he wears all the time. Like at one point when we knew that they'd gotten to get back together, she was seen wearing the shirt. Like, it's like...
I love it. That gave me a lot of pleasure, I gotta say.
There was nothing more pleasurable in the world of celebrity for like a half decade besides the two of them getting back together. It was amazing.
And I think it's specifically pleasurable to people who had witnessed the dissolution of their relationship in the past. And it like gives you this interesting like second, third, fourth act of your life. Like you plays like a rom-com. So, okay, let's talk about the memes. Since we're talking about the Instagram account with the shirt. Those classic paparazzi shots of him like smoking the cigarette, looking exhausted, staring out into the sea. Like the one that I loved and that prompted me to write the story about like the unbearable sadness was, they was just like staring into nothingness and they were playing the Simon and Garfunkel's Sound of Silence. Like he's just so susceptible to memification. So this is a question from Jessica that gets at this, and Melody is going to read it.
Why are we so uncomfortable as a society with a celebrity that does not look happy 24/7? The implication is always that he's unhappy with his life or career or marriage, and not that he's making the same faces the rest of us make throughout our days.
So I love you brought this up on your own. You were like, Ben Affleck has resting bitch face, right?
He does.
Resting bitch face is a derogatory term used to essentially like police women into always looking like they are compliant.
Yes.
Happy to be doing whatever they're doing at any moment.
Yes.
And if
I wouldn't give it to a woman.
Yes. Right? Like, but that they should, like, we should always look like that around one another. And Ben Affleck refuses to do it. And I think, like, there's an interesting feminization, I think, that happens sometimes with Ben Affleck. And part of it is, like, the contrast with Damon, who plays, like, more masculine superhero character, like, has always just been more pumped, like, and more looked like he was the protagonist in Good Will Hunting, right? And Ben Affleck was the sidekick, and then just like the affiliation with stronger women and some of these different ways. So I think that this is part of that, but I haven't completely teased it out. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thought is why we can't accept this is because we want celebrities to put on a show for us. Yeah. We want a show.
Yeah.
We've given them fame. And we want them to look happy. I mean, there was like a recent Conan O'Brien Hot Ones that I'm obsessed with, that he talks about like the worst thing a celebrity can do on a talk show. And the worst thing they can do is say, oh, this isn't going very well, is it? And it's because the audience so much wants that performance. They want it to seem okay. This is really, we want it to seem, because what else is there to aspire to than money in this society and fame, right? We want it to seem like it's great, although it's awful.
Yeah.
We don't want to see it being awful because we want to sort of like revere these people. We want to look up to them. When we see it looking terrible, it's like, well, what about the rest of it? What is good? You know, it's like a very existential crisis for all of us. And he reflects out an existential crisis almost at all time.
Like if he's one of what's the kids movie? It's like Inside Out, where like they're in like an emotion.
Yes.
Right? Like he's just existential crisis.
He is. He's too self-aware. He's too sensitive, and he's too self-conscious to be famous. He just is, and he says it all the time. He's like, I'm not suited for this. Like he's just,
And yet, you know, like because there are people, and this is the fundamental tension with him, right? Is that like he could choose not to be a famous person. But he has too much pride and ambition.
That's right.
To not be a famous person.
That's right. He can't get out. He can't get out. And I think he chooses highly competent women who have their shit together.
Yes.
And I think he likes to be directed. I think he in a way he would, if he could be in movies and have complete privacy. I think that's what he would choose. If that was like a choice for him, he would choose it, but he can't get it.
Yeah. Some of his peers, like I'm thinking about Jon Favreau, not the Pod Save America host, but the one-time movie star. He was in Swingers.
Right.
And now he's the director of like so many superheroes, right?
Yeah.
Or like Michael Showalter, big comedian, like foundational to a lot of some of my favorite movies like Wet Hot American Summer. He just directed The Idea of You.
I mean, yeah, he could do that, but maybe he needs attention. Maybe, like who knows, because he's such a mess. Who knows? But also, again, I would say that Jon Favreau, the director, not the Pod Save America host, is really good at what he does. Like he's excellent at it,
He's
right?
a great superhero director.
He's a great superhero director. Herein lies the problem with Ben Affleck. What is he excellent at?
Like I remember when, what's the Boston movie that he did? That
The
he
Town?
wasn't in? Yeah,
No.
no, the one before that he wasn't in.
Oh, is he not in Gone Baby Gone? Yes.
Gone Baby Gone,
Yes.
which was sort of his comeback movie. It was like, he's not even in it, right? But it was like, I'm absenting myself from the movie as a sort of statement about like how I want to approach fame. And I remember liking it almost like in spite of itself. Like I was like, I think he's trying to do something interesting here. It doesn't quite work, right? There were like all the shots of like
Blake
an attempt to like
Lively.
do naturalism, right?
Yeah.
But it made him more interesting to me, not because he was a good director per se, but because I thought he was texturing his star image in a way that I found fascinating. But that's a problem, right? Like if you're not actually that good of a director.
You know what? Right. Yeah, of course that's a problem. But but also I think that he has to probably act for the money.
Right.
Like, because it's not like it's so easy to get movies made. It's really, really hard for almost anybody, you know?
Yeah.
And so I suspect that like he did these superhero movies because he needed the money. Because also, imagine how much his life must cost. It's not like he can just back out, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and he's still paying child support for like. I mean, Jennifer Garner has some good movie deals. That's another person that I would love to talk about because she has had this second career that kids love her now. Do you know this? That like every kid knows who she is.
Oh, that's good for her.
Because she's a mom in so many of those movies. Like she's the like cool mom.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
And she also has a lot of, I think, effective brand deals where she gets paid. Like, she's the sort of brand that companies want to affix themselves to.
Yeah, she clicks because she's not polarizing.
Yes, but Ben Affleck has to, pay for that lifestyle. He's like, he has movie star handcuffs, right? Where it's
absolutely, yep. And also, he likes nice cars. Like he likes nice shit.
Yeah.
Like he like there's some things he likes about being famous and rich,
Yes.
like, but yeah, so I suspect that's why if we really were like, why doesn't he just go away? He probably needs some money.
Okay, so this next thing is something that I don't know if I realized until this question came up. So, as a scholar, as an Affleck scholar, I want to see if you also noticed this turning point. The
Okay.
question comes from Portia.
I've never been that into Ben Affleck, always more of a Matt Damon girl. But around Argo, I got really into Ben and was excited about this new, more serious phase of his career. Why was that? What machinations or marketing was going on to suddenly make Ben Affleck so much more appealing to me? And I've since lost all interest in him, and I wonder if his shift since Argo has been on purpose, or because, as Anne has said, he just doesn't like being a celebrity. What do you think?
Right. So, do you think that there's a before Argo and after Argo? Like, is that a hinge point in his career?
I think it's a hinge point in his celebrity. Because at that point, now he's not the bad boy. He doesn't look like he's scout. Like, he makes sense to us in this very conventional, heteronormative way. He's with Jennifer Garner, who's a sweetheart. He's got these 3 kids. He's got the beard. He's an auteur now. And like I said, I really do think that movie is, we're like, oh, he can act and direct. It is very much dog playing a saxophone in that moment, right? Mm-hmm. But he just makes sense suddenly, and we all are rooting for him. Because I also think that a lot of what was going on with why people rejected him so much in the J.Lo years is just racism. I think people had a real problem seeing this like white boy from Boston with this woman of color. And I think that we never really talk about that, but I think that was absolutely played into everything. Totally. So I think that suddenly he became very palatable in a very conventional way. And let me just say, I think this is disgusting, but I think that is the moment. Like, he's dad Ben Affleck and he's a serious guy. And like, we all wanted him to make it in that way, or like, not we, but like, the sort of commercial fan base.
And Hollywood loves a comeback in some sort of way like that.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
They love venerating one of their own and like underlining, look at this movie star who is now turned serious, right?
Yes.
Or something like that.
And they love a not smart movie. Like, Hollywood loves a movie that's just smart enough.
Yeah. Or like about history.
Yeah. Oh, about history. Right. Exactly. Like anytime.
Like, the Prestige movie is just like the books that you get for like a stereotypical boomer dad. Like, oftentimes.
Yes. Yes. Oh my God. That's perfect. That's exactly it. It's a Father's Day book movie.
And he did, like, he was also at this point, just with his looks, right? Like, he was at a likable age, right?
Oh yeah, no, and also he had a beard. Beard Ben Affleck is so much better than Beard Ben Affleck.
We got to talk about this.
Beard Ben Affleck is like hotness level, like just shoots up by like it's so many percentage points. Non-bearded, it's not as good. It's just not. I mean, really. And I think that J.Lo was like, you got to keep that beard, dude. And he just had to like shave it for the accountant too. And I think coincidence that their marriage is falling apart at the same time. I don't know.
But I had totally forgotten about the beard. But it was so effective at signaling this different chapter in his career.
Yes.
And like, oh, maybe you were a Matt Damon girl, but maybe now.
Yeah.
I never thought about him that way. Whatever.
Yeah.
And then it goes away with the back tattoo.
Oh. The back tattoo. I can't get over it. I have looked for like online. I've like searched for, I want to see details of it. How many hours do you think? Because it's not like that was not an impulse decision. That is like a 2 or 3 session tat.
The thing that makes it for me is that the image that offered us access to the tattoo, he's wearing like a dad towel.
Oh my God.
Like it's rolled over, right? And his hands are behind him, Right? And he just is like, he kind of has a little bit of a dad bod. I don't mean that in any derogatory
he just, he doesn't have
like,
a superhero bod at the moment,
The imagery of it was just speaking so loudly. And it was kind of a cloudy day at the beach.
Oh, that was... God bless him.
Just a meh day. And here he is with this back tattoo that is telling such a different story than everything else about his posture, his towel, the sun on the beach, like all of those things.
I think that I would pay quite a lot of money to sit in a room with him and say, 10 minutes, explain everything that went into getting that tattoo.
So what is it like? We got a lot of questions that were just like the tattoo, what the fuck, right? So like, why? I think we can unpack this a little bit more. What is it about the tattoo that seemed to speak something about, like, very, very powerfully, very poignantly about not just like where he was, but also about like that stage in a lot of ambitious men's lives?
I mean, it's a midlife crisis tattoo if I've ever seen one. Okay, like it's a midlife crisis tattoo, but also maybe he just wanted to mark all of the mistakes that he's made in like a very bold way. Don't make them again, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I just pop in and ask one of you to like visually describe the
Melody?
tattoo?
Melody, if someone doesn't know what this tattoo looks like,
Okay.
All right, we should describe it.
But also, have we said that it's a phoenix?
Yes, it's
Okay, yeah.
Okay, we haven't.
Yeah,
Okay.
do say that because that is part of
we're
the
keeping
message.
this in. We're keeping this in.
Okay.
Jen, can you describe the tattoo? Because Melody seems to think that someone has never seen an image. Someone listening to this podcast.
So it's the full back. Shoulder to shoulder, going down. It's like almost to tailbone. Okay. Like that's why I'm saying it's intricate. It's in color.
It's in color. It's in several colors.
It's a multicolor phoenix tattoo. It's got like wings. They're very detailed. It's basically symbolizing like, don't fly too close to the sun, Ben Affleck.
But I kind of love it for that reason, right? It's like he was really trying to get something that was meaningful to him, right? Like to commemorate this in some way.
But this also goes back to the taste situation. Like, it's a hideous tattoo. If your partner, you would be like, what? Like, I'm never looking at that part. This is a horrifying.
So Melody just put in the chat, and I remember this happening, but I couldn't remember the specific wording, which is that Jennifer Garner was asked about it. And she said, you know what we would say in my hometown about that? Bless his heart.
Oh, amazing.
But also she says, a phoenix rising from the ashes. Am I the ashes in this scenario? I take umbrage. I refuse to be the ashes. And he was like, this is when I think he was really struggling with addiction at that point. And like that, this is the part with the nanny, I think.
Yeah, he's sleeping with the nanny. I mean, he's sleeping with anybody. He's just a mess. He's a mess. And like, look, I don't condone any of this behavior. I love him because he is a deeply flawed person, and this is just what he did to her is disgusting. And he probably should have never married her, is the truth. She was way too good for him.
But like you said, he likes a woman who has her shit together.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to save the last 3 questions for the Ask Ann Anything segment of the show, which is just for paid subscribers. We're going to talk about how Ben Affleck's star image intersects with the images of the people he surrounds himself with, like J.Lo, Matt Damon, Ana de Armas, Jennifer Garner, even Elizabeth Warren. And there's a very funny story about Jen almost running a celebrity over with a scooter. So not to be all clickbaity about it, but you won't believe who. If you want to hear that level of celebrity image dissection, head to culturestudypod.substack.com and become a paid subscriber. Jen, thank you so much for joining me. Where can people find you on the internet if they want to hear more from you?
They can find me at Jenn Romolini on Instagram. They can find me at jennromolini.substack.com on my Substack. My book Ambition Monster came out on June 4th. Please buy it. It explores a lot of these themes of ambition and class and identity struggle.
And I can't tell you, like, this is just my re-up of my blurb. It is incredibly propulsive. Like, I looked up like third of the way through the book. And part of that is like some of it, the different acts are very relatable to me in terms of like trying to navigate the media world. But I think even if you have no experience with that, it's going to hook you. But then also like take us, I think a lot of us are in this place where we're like thinking about what does ambition do to us? Like, how does it corrode us and our spirits? But then, and how do we come out on the other side too?
Yeah, so. And burnout, obviously, and you know a lot about that. Thank you so much for this. I could not believe I got to do this.
Thank you so much for listening to the Culture Study Podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We have so many great episodes in the works, and I promise that you do not want to miss any of them. And if you want to suggest a topic or ask a question about the culture that surrounds you, or submit a question for our subscriber-only advice time segment, go to our Google form at tinyurl.com/culturestudypod or check the show notes for a link. Also, tell us which other celebrity images we should dissect. You know, I just recently wrote about Glenn Powell. I've been wanting to write about Sydney Sweeney and Gen Z stardom, but no one is submitting any good questions. Any other images? Let's go for it. And if you want to support the show and get bonus content, head to culturestudypod.substack.com. It's just $5 a month or $50 a year. You also get a discount if you're already a Culture Study newsletter subscriber, and you'll get ad-free episodes, an exclusive advice time segment, weekly discussion threads for each episode, and a link to a special Google form so that your questions go to the front of the line. The Culture Study Podcast is produced by me, Anne Helen Peterson, and Melody Rowell. Our music is by Poddington Bear. You can find me on Instagram at Anne Helen Peterson, Melody at Melodious47, and the show at Culture Study Pod.